Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about things you are not told. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, what are some things that no one tells you about a career in software development? Well, probably a lot. Depends on who you're asking. Um, if I'm only going to pick one thing to talk about, I would say that very few people tell you about the extent of responsibility you as a software developer will have to shoulder in order to produce good results. I would say that. Let me explain that a little bit. So there is a there is something that I have observed now after a while of working, and I've come to call it I sort of try to encapsulate the whole concept by saying that the software developer is the perfect unit of a worker in IT. And what I mean by that is that unfortunately we live in a world where there is no real requirement of competency on people who work in middle management. There is unfortunately no real measurement for how do we evaluate if someone is actually good at what they do or bad at what they do. It's a gut feeling type of thing. And the more unfortunately within IT there's a lot of that going around where the only reason things actually happen is because the software developer decides to or tries to bridge the incompetence of a lot of other stakeholders, or at the very least the ignorance. And it's not the personal thing. I don't want people to think that I'm bash talking middle management or product owners or things like that. It's not about that. It is just that the the reality is that if the software developer decides that I'm only going to focus on the code and nothing else, the product is almost doomed to fail. The reason being because in order for you to deliver good software, you have to have technical knowledge and vision that spans outside of your own team and your own system. You have to have a technical perspective in order to build all these things. And we can discuss this at length. Is it right to hire product managers or hire managers and so forth like that who don't know anything about coding? Because if they knew how to write all the code, they wouldn't need to have the software developers, and they wouldn't need the software developers to write the software, but not to be in all the business meeting and do all the planning and preparation and all that stuff. But if they don't know, well, they're not going to be very effective, and that is the norm, my friends. That is the norm of how it works. The norm is that the product manager, product owners, they don't know anything. It's hilarious. I even go as far as to say I will die before there is a day where I get the perfectly prepared story card by a PO, or a project where they actually manage to dish out all the details about what needs to happen. Because on average they simply do not know enough. So the way we try to bridge that these days in a graceful way-ish is that we put more responsibility on the software developer. And that's why code monkeys are so dangerous to have too many of, because if the software developers take the stance that, well, we're just going to do what the PO says or asks for, then it's, as I like to say, it's like a doctor saying that the patient can do their own diagnosis. Oh, you have some ache in your hand. Don't worry about it. We're going to give you some morphine for that, and then you're addicted to morphine. This is the problem that you might not really be so aware of in the early days, because in the early days it's a lot about coding, because you don't know enough to be, and you're not usually trusted in the early days to be involved in this way. But it's the final destination of your career. You will very quickly come to realize that in order for you to ship anything of value in software, you as the software developer, you have to be part PO, part designer, part QA, part everything, part absolutely everything, because you're constantly put in a position where you're the one who knows how the system works and how to build the code and all that stuff, which means that everybody has to go to you to ask how to do things, or if something is possible, or if something can be done, something cannot be done, because they don't know, and you know. Therefore, in order for you to make any progress, you literally have to be able to communicate with all these people in a way that makes sense to them. Because it's actually really rare that someone who is outside on like the outside, I mean, the guys I've worked with, QAs, who are supposed to be these and this is the norm as well, QAs, engineers who are supposed to be these hybrids type of characters, they don't know enough about the code in order to actually make good judgment calls. Same thing with data engineers. They're completely useless for the most part when it comes to technical discussions, because they only have a part, if that they have an understanding of part of the problem. And the closer, it's sort of like the whole battle between the QAs are looked down upon by the front-end engineers. The front-end engineers are looked down upon by the back-end engineers, and the back-end engineers are looked down upon by the system engineers. Like, the closer you get to the source of all the complexity and all the stuff, if that makes sense, the more information you have, the better your understanding is, like, etc., etc. And to a point, there is a truth to that. It doesn't really, in my opinion, justify people being mistreated, because everybody makes their own decisions and so forth. But it should give you an idea, I hope, when I say that, of like sort of the problem, when I say that if the PO only understands a portion of the problem, the QA only understands a portion of the problem, or the data engineer, or the whatever, like, it doesn't matter who it is, they only understand one portion, and you understand the entire thing, like, or rather, that is supposed what you, like, as a software developer, you are the one who's writing the code. You actually know how the thing is working. That puts you in a position where all these people together, like the areas that they need to sort of address from their perspective, you have the information that they need. But as you can imagine, if there is loss of communication between you and the PO, well, then they're going to set up a specification that isn't really sane. That's actually going to fuck up the code. And so you have to help them to understand how do they write a specification or create a product vision that is going to fit with how the system behaves and what's going to be good. Like, because there's a balancing between, if you just design an idealistic product with your team, well, then maybe the technology is going to be limited. Maybe you won't be able to actually build that thing in the way you want. You design this great thing, but you can't actually make it. And that requires a software developer. QA is the same thing. You might create like a lot of these different processes to check quality, but if you don't know how the developers are doing work, or if like how to set up a good testing strategy based on the limitations of the system, you're not going to be able to create a good quality assurance pipeline or something like that. Data engineers have the same thing, or like, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be designers, it could be everything. So you always have to do your job, and depending on the incompetence or competency of the other people that you deal with, either do their entire job or part of it. That is something that nobody tells you, and that is, I can tell you this has been my reality for quite some time, where literally it is at the point where if you do not do this, you can in effect not write good software. Because the problem isn't that you can't technologically solve a lot of these issues and write good solutions. It is that the way that the work is being done, and all these external parties who help you sort of formulate how the system is going to work, they need help in ways that from you, in ways that go so far, in many cases way beyond just writing code. A lot of the social skills and soft skills are necessary just in order for you to actually communicate and like to educate people and to make people see reasons. There's a lot of politics, a lot of discussions, a lot of that sort of stuff. You tell every single person who wants to go above being a code monkey, you want to do that, make damn sure that you take some courses on effective communication and mentorship and things like that. It's going to help you a lot, I promise you that much. So what I want you to take away from this is that the thing that most people don't tell you about software development is that it's code only in the beginning, but the longer you stay, the more you realize that a lot of other areas is going to become your way. I'll give you a concrete example. I dare you to go and find me a product owner who understands how to work with Google Analytics. Fully understands. I am probably sure that you'll find one or two, but the norm is that You know that trend everybody's talking about? Oh, we should be data driven. I have to this day not found a product owner who actually knows how to use any of the analytical tools that they are supposed to be using to be data driven. But there's a lot of them who just say to the developers, hey, can you figure out how that works? So now you need to know Google Analytics. And that is why I tell developers that what you have to realize is that your sphere of of what you have to know very much depends on what the company needs, how competent, incompetent the stakeholders are, what they, etc., because you are the person who is best equipped to not only answer all the questions related to the thing that you are doing, but also actually learn other systems and how other things work that are so-called complicated things. Because you are, well, it sucks, but you're a smart person. And for a lot of people, it's not organic, like it's not natural for them to feel that, oh, this is something I don't really understand, I should probably go and learn that. No, that's not how most people work. Most people think, oh, this is something that is very complicated, somebody else should tell me, help me fix this. As a software developer, that's not how that's not how you work. Usually the way you work is, I have a problem, I don't know how to fix it, let's go and figure out how it works. And because you are a software developer, that creates a situation where you are almost always forced to use that skill way beyond just fixing code. And you trust me, before you know it, you're in meetings having product only discussions and trying to like communicate to different non-technical, this is hilarious, sitting in meetings with people who know nothing about IT, trying to explain to them how to make their system work with your system, because they don't have a software developer, but they have systems that you need to integrate with. Trying to literally explain to people whose business it is what the REST API is, or how to do TLS encryptions, or whatever it might have you, right? That is something not a lot of people are aware of. You're basically a mini politician. Have a great day.